Greetings everyone, I'm Record the Second, and welcome to a follow-up on my most controversial video ever, and I really recommend you watch it first before this video because it has important context. And also because it seems like 90% of the people who clicked on the video didn't even watch it, which I admit might be partly my fault because of the thumbnail and title, which are relatively provocative, I suppose. But really, it doesn't misrepresent the video, so I don't think it's clickbait. Either way, people didn't react to it in a way that makes any sense. It seemed like the majority of people just divided into two camps. One camp which is always on the side of Mojang, and one camp which is always not on the side of Mojang. And they were kind of battling each other in the comments as well. And I just want to say, guys, please watch the video first before you comment your opinions, because a lot of those criticisms I received in the comments I literally addressed in the video. So it was clear that people just didn't listen to me, and I want to make sure that you hear me this time, because I, like promised, will cover the rest of the update as it now stands, because we've gotten a lot of new features. So leaf litter was one of the items I complained about the most when I was covering the first snapshot, and like I said, I was just hoping they were going to fix it. I would say largely they have. It definitely looks so much better now that it is biome tinted. So it looks different in here, and it looks different here, so it really matches the biome. Coolest of all, it's also different in the Pale Garden. Great feature, exactly what we've been asking for. I still think these two specific leaves here are too harsh. It stands out from a distance, pretty close to the best version of this item that it can be. The fact that it doesn't generate here in the Pale Garden doesn't make any sense because it generates in the regular Dark Forest. I guess they just forgot to go back here and change it. Another issue that is still the same is I think the recipe for these is kind of weird, and I think it should smelt way faster than it does. And another problem, as you can see if I go into a dark forest, it still generates in this way where you can just see really harsh lines. I mean, this looks like a perfect line right here, and this is a very common sight, so it does not really feel very natural going through these biomes. And seeing the leaf litter, it just kind of feels artificial just with the way the block works. So they should really patch the texture up to not look like it's divided into these chunks, and oftentimes it generates in these lines. So I really hope they can change that. I'm not sure why it looks that way when the flowers don't look like that. Like the pink petals and the wildflowers look fine, but this block specifically doesn't. It looks kind of strange. It's hard to describe exactly, but it's because of this artificial feeling that you get from the way this looks. Lastly, I think we still should have some kind of leaf layer block, perhaps, of actual fallen leaves that look like the leaves of the tree. I think that's kind of missing from this update, but leaf litter, huge improvement. So, like I said, I was anticipating them to change some of it. I don't think it still lives up to its full potential, but at least it's so much better than the original version. So let's move on to the animal variants finally and explain what the hell is going on here. Still think we should have more variants than this. Still think they should have actually redesigned the mobs, and no, this doesn't count. That is little to nothing. I just think these designs really need work. I showed some off in the last video and people thought they were a little too much, but I've actually made some of my own designs, so let me show you these really quick. And I'm not saying these should be in the game the way they are, but I do think these are a huge improvement over the ones we have in vanilla. So this is my version of the pig. It has ears, its body is a bit different, it has a tail, its snout is actually longer, and it does have a little bit more of that pig snout shape. I think this model works really well in the game, and it's really damn close to the original pig anyways. As you can see, its body is fatter. Also, its legs are positioned differently. So these legs in the back are kind of at the edge of the body, but these are more inward, which looks more natural to me. This looks so much better in my opinion than the vanilla pig. I also made a cow redesign. This one is inspired by the dairy cows from Minecraft Earth, so they don't have to be colored this exact way, but the general model I would keep the same. I put a lot of effort into this one specifically, and I think it came out really great. The ears are, as you can see, on the parallel with the body, and then the head and the horns and the tail are at an angle. I think it looks very natural. The same thing goes here with the legs that I mentioned before with the pig, except these legs are also taller and kind of wider. I just think it gives the animal so much more detail, and they look more believable. The legs are taller, the body is much longer, which also fits cows. They have a tail, which I didn't fully texture, but hey, it's there. And also the head is, I think, is a highlight. It's very similar to goat heads and hoglin heads. And I just think it really works well for this mob specifically because if you look up any picture of a cow or if you've interacted with a cow, their heads are not really the way that the vanilla cows look. And as you can see, I did keep a lot of the aspects, for example, the derpy eyes, because I do think they look much better than the alternative of having eyes on the sides, which, believe me, I tried. I just don't think it looks that well. And it even has like a tiny smile. So I do think these are a huge improvement over the vanilla cows that we have at the moment. They are so nice to encounter. If you want, I might release this as a resource pack, but I'm not sure if I'm going to add all the cow variants and the pig variants to this, or even other animal redesigns, because I haven't made them. But this is just an example of what I wanted to see from this update, and I think it's a huge missed opportunity that we don't have that. Like I said, it was a very low hanging fruit to just bring the Earth variants to the game, which I did in the upcoming update to my mob tweaks data pack. If you want to learn more in detail about all these mobs, check out that video because it has all of the variants showcased and all the details explained. But basically, instead of having one worm pig for all worm biomes, we now have a worm pig for jungles, a worm pig for badlands biomes, and a worm pig for savannas. And I think it adds so much more to the world. So like I said before, I do like that we have variants of these animals. Don't get me wrong. I just think they didn't go far enough with them. And some of these new variants do have additions to the model, different designs, but it just doesn't really fundamentally change the problem with these. I still don't like the way these cows look. I think they're really outdated. They don't look like they fit the game anymore, and instead of changing them, they just kind of added really tiny superfluous additions to the other variants, which is, like I said, better than nothing, but I'm still not really happy with the final result. I'm a big fan of the way this works, but also there's a fan art I found using the cows from Minecraft Earth, and every design of cows in general is also included in there, and that is so much better than what we have. Even my designs, which are restricted by the fact that I'm using Optifine, so I can't really change the model too much, but I still think this is a major improvement. If we can update Vexus, if we can update bats, why can't we update these to look so much better? But that's about it when it comes to the farm animals. Now, of course, there are also new changes that were added. I'll touch on them, but first, I'll go over the last thing that I complained about. Remember what I said. People were saying, oh, it's a placeholder, it's fine, they'll fix it, and we're at release, it's been months, and they haven't even touched this. It's the exact same as it was on release. It was not a placeholder, and it really came out this badly. First of all, these should not even have leaf particles, but they do. And all of them looked exactly the same despite different types of leaves looking very different. So I still think this implementation is very lazy, and I'm really not a fan. This is the worst part of this update, hands down. Easily the worst part of the update is these incredibly lackluster leaf particles. So people who were complaining that I shouldn't make a video about the snapshot because it's literally the first snapshot, they're gonna fix everything. Well, they didn't fix everything. And I was right to complain because some of these complaints, I want to clarify, I don't think it's specifically my feedback that they listened to, but just the general. A lot of people complained about leaf litter, and look how much better it is now than it was. Again, to all the people who say that Mojang should be immune to criticism, if you had that mentality, maybe they wouldn't even change these. Maybe they would have been as bad as they were on release. Still, they don't always listen to the feedback. The leaves are the same. I'm not sure why, but they just didn't bother changing them. So that's a disappointing thing. But now let's talk about the other stuff in this update. It's a very cool feature that we now have ambience for sand blocks, and we have also badlands ambience. So alright, let's just go to the badlands biome and enjoy some of this really cool ambience. Huge fan of this. Really well done because it's expanding on the pale garden ambience and the way that works. And it is so much better than just having ambience per biome the way it is in the nether. It works for the nether, but I don't think it works in the overworld because it can be nighttime or daytime, you can be underground, you can be above ground, you can be underwater, and all of these conditions will need to change how the ambience works. So I'm a big fan of this approach specifically. I think it works incredibly well, but again, as a lot of other things that are wrong with this update, it's just not enough. My main thesis of this video is that they really should have given this update 2 more months to really fix all the issues. They could have added sheep variants, they could have fixed the leaf particles, they could have added more ambience, and addressed everything else if they had more time, but they don't. And it's a problem with these drop releases. This does not feel like a complete update. Imagine if in 1.20 they added like 3 armor trims. It just doesn't feel like it's done. Same thing with the animal variants as with the ambience. We only got ambience really for 2 biomes, and of course you can also get some in beaches because of the sand, but that's it. Why don't we have any forest ambience? Why is there no cold biome ambience? Why is there no ocean ambience? It all feels like it's just not finished. I feel like some parts of the world were neglected. And also, I'm not a fan of the way this looks in this biome. I think these should be also tinted the way leaf litter is, at least a little bit, because they really stand out. and it's a little bit of an eyesore, to be honest. Alright, forgot to mention this, but obviously we've gotten the new bushes, which the regular bush seems kind of small. I think it should be much bigger than this. Also, if we can get leaf litter from smelting leaves, we should be able to get dead bushes from smelting bushes. But on to the main attraction, of course. So I think this is a great addition, and I commend Mojang for finally following up on their promise and actually adding something they intended to add. This is a million times better than the initial idea for the Fireflies. Those were terrible. Considering the current way the game runs when it comes to entities and how much lag they cause, this is definitely the best way to do Fireflies. However, eventually one day I would prefer to have some kind of actual entity, some kind of big Firefly bug that will actually exist in the world and interact with the world, and even frogs in some instances, hopefully, but whatever, they don't have to do that. But really, there's no good explanation to why they couldn't just rename Fireflies to like a fictional creature, like a glow bee or something like that, and make frogs eat them. I think the real reason why they were never added as entities is because entities cause lag, and it's not easy to change entity code to not cause lag, so they had to do something with particles instead. Great feature, and I like the bushes too. I think they're fine, but not as good as they can be. This is already basically fulfilling what people wanted. We didn't get lanterns with Fireflies, which I think is kind of a missed opportunity. Maybe you could have used the bottle on the Firefly bush to turn it into a regular bush, but then you get the Firefly in the bottle block, and that would have been nice to have as well. But this is really good already the way it is, I think, and yeah. This is one of the few instances with this drop where I think this is almost 100% perfection. It's a common theme with this update. It feels like a lot of features are just not done. Hopefully not because of the movie quota, because that would be just disgusting. They decided to do this update in such a short time span. I just don't think it was good for the update. I think it was very detrimental to this update to not give it more time. I like the fallen logs, I like the cactus flower, I like the ambience, but aside from the desert, which really got an overhaul, it feels like they didn't do enough. If they had more time, they would have hopefully addressed the leaf particles. If they had more time, they could have added ambience to all overworld environments, not just to biomes. If they had more time, they could have added leaf litter to pale gardens. If they had more time, they could have added sheep variants and just change and update the farm animal models in general. If they had more time, this drop could have actually lived up to its full potential, but instead it was handicapped. And that's my main issue. So like I said, I'm not a Mojang hater, not at all. I also am not a Mojang glazer, and I can recognize when they messed up, and I think they messed up with this update in a lot of ways. Please, be civil, don't just divide into mobs, into camps, one side or the other, black or white, red or blue, right or wrong, left or right, etc. Have actual standards and follow them. If you hate Mojang, and you think they always suck, and they make something good, then acknowledge that. If you think Mojang is the best in the world, it can never do any wrong, but they mess up somewhere, you have to acknowledge that. We're not gonna get anywhere in this fan base if we cannot be reasonable about our opinions. Mojang isn't perfect, nor is it terrible. It's somewhere in the middle. I skew more towards the side of good, some people skew more towards the side of bad, some people are straight in the middle, but you really shouldn't be on either end of the spectrum. You have to be reasonable. So that's my main message to you. Hopefully they update some of this stuff later, because they still did improvements to the Pale Garden after release. So hopefully we'll get some of these fixes that I really suggest. Don't forget to check out MobFix, because I'm going to be adding all of these variants in the next update. But that's basically it. Don't forget to smash subscribe, ring my bell, and as always, stay.